Welcome to the Coffee Break Show. It's brought to you by the Metadyne Digital Network. Today we have Amy Siegfried on with us, and we are going to rock your world. But as always, before we do that, let's start the music. I'll see you guys in a minute. Have you ever been one of those people that are just busy, 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 busy? And sometimes you're wondering, how do I juggle life? I want to reinvent myself. I want things to be different. Today, we are going to rock the world and talk about that. Amy, welcome to the Coffee Break Show. I am really excited that you are here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Vickie. Welcome to my studio.
I know. I'm like, this is the perfect thing right here because everybody is so busy. And sometimes we want everything to look perfect, be perfect, and act perfect. And you know what? This is the sign of perfection right here. This is the sign of, how you got to get your day moving and things like that. So let me just ask you, I just want to start off by asking you, how did you get to the point in your career business right now that you decided to take this particular topic and create the business that you've created with it? And do me a favor, tell everybody about what you do and how you do it.
Okay, well, thank you. And I guess I'll kind of keep the story brief to a point. So, what we do, I have a company called Last Night's Game, and we cover sports for people who know nothing about sports or really don't have time to keep up with the world of sports, but need to engage in that conversation in their daily life. And I always talk about sports as just an extra tool in your tool belt that allows you to grow your career, right? It's a great opportunity for us to create conversation. And it's also not that controversial thing that we might avoid, like religion and politics. And so,
Yeah.
the whole idea came to me because I was an intern. I was working at the Arizona Diamondbacks. I was still in college and I was probably about 20, 21 at that point. And I realized that I had all these girlfriends in these male dominated industries like manufacturing and
Yeah.
law. And they really had no idea what was going on in the world of sports. And I'm not saying that they need to know who won the game last night or who is the home run king of the season, but just that the Super Bowl was happening, the NBA playoffs were happening, maybe some big stories that might be going on. And so I realized that there's an easier way to cover sports, an easier way to talk about sports. But also, it was one of those things where there's so much more interesting pieces to sports than the box score. And so that was about 14 years ago before we started last night's game. I had this idea, this concept. I called my brother and said, "Hey, what do you think about this? I really think this could help a lot of people our age and beyond to just join in the conversation." And he was like, he's my rational one. And he said, so you're working 80 hours a week as an intern and going to school, and I'm in high school. So I don't think that's probably going to work. And there was no Squarespace to make your own website or MailChimp to send emails. And so it's sort of, we just tabled it. And it was an idea we had and was like, okay, well, good idea. Maybe we'll try it again sometime other time. So when my husband and I were moving back to the US from Singapore, we moved a couple days before Thanksgiving. And I had been looking for a job for about 3 months before we moved. And I knew that no one was hiring between Thanksgiving and New Year's. So when my brother came to town for Thanksgiving, we sat down at our dining room table and said, "What do you think? What if we just give this thing a shot? I
Oh,
don't know what we call it." I had an aha moment in the shower for the name, one of those, that you're those things. And we just sort of started it. And it was, I think it's in lean startup. They say if your business is beautiful when you launch it, or your product is beautiful when you launch it, you launch too late. And ours was
mhm.
ugly. It was a it
So,
was a
yeah, I
G
still get that.
it was an email with a link to a website, and when we got too big to send one mass Gmail email, then we were like, "Okay, we've gotta figure out something else." And so it sort of just grew from that, into what it is. And like I said, it started off probably a little more sporty than I would like, and has since grown into sort of this mix of pop culture and sports. And that's really what I mean, that's what I love about it, because I learn a lot. I mean, I'll be quite honest, I don't have time to watch ESPN all day and learn all
Yeah.
the things there are to know. And so I learn a lot too, putting all of this together. And my brother is that sports brain. And so he's the one who really helps me cultivate that information. And I'm the one who translates it into sort of a non sporty speak, if you will.
I think that's I think it's so incredible. I'm a sports
Thank you.
hound, love it. But the truth is, I also run 3 companies, so the chance that I get to sit down and watch a football game, I think it's
Right.
been 12 years since I watched a
Hmm.
football game, or 12 years, 13 years since I watched the Masters, and I like tennis and everything else, and being caught up in that. But, it's interesting because so many of the things I've heard is, if you wanna close the deal, go to the golf course. If you
Hmm.
wanna be at that country club or whatever it is where the deals are made, etcetera. And one of the things I know that helps people is it's not just being able everybody loves March Madness. It comes in, everybody loves the NBA, and
Right.
I love it all too. And that speak for women is the being able to speak sports,
Hmm.
etc. And being able to speak it in a way that is inclusive, doesn't make you look like, the odd girl out or whatever else.
Right.
That to me is quite the gift. And I got to be honest, I have closed a lot of deals because I knew a lot about the football team that the client actually liked, that they actually
Hmm.
knew about. It's a bonding thing. I loved what you said just a second ago about politics and religion. You take those two out, sports is always such a great place to go, and whether it's the Olympics or etc. So, what on earth do you do right now to manage all the insanity of your busy day? I know you have a family. I know that you have a business. I know that you do. I don't know if you're still going to school or not.
I
And if
just
you
finished that.
the MBA piece of it, and I'm like, that's a lot. And I've seen a lot of women do this. A lot of women, they are somehow so ambitious that when they start moving their day, running that day, doing that thing. How is it that you manage without, and do you have overwhelm, or how do you manage your overwhelm if you have it?
I would say that the biggest thing that I have learned to do is to let go. There are some things I just can't do. And I mean, if COVID taught us anything, we've got to find that balance of, whether that's working from home and having our children,
Mhm.
our kids at home and our spouses at home and all trying to figure out how to do all the things together. I would say letting go. And I was talking to someone about this the other day. I've since finished my MBA, but my MBA was also out of state. So that was fun to travel every 2 weeks on top of everything else. But I just said, you know what? We ate takeout. Or we did like, hey, there's a can of soup in the pantry. There were just things, let's all have peanut butter and jelly for dinner because at some point there was one thing that I couldn't do and I wasn't able to keep up with was making a meal every night. So that was just one thing
Yeah.
that I sort of had to let go. And I mean, I was really lucky that I have a very supportive spouse who travels a ton for work, but because of COVID, he's just started to travel now.
Mhm.
So it's one of those where the timing all worked itself out really, really well. That when now that I had to be gone when I was going to be not the primary parent and had to be gone every
Yeah.
other week, usually from a Thursday to a Sunday, that he was home. And so we really that did help a ton for us not to have to worry about balancing who's going to
Yeah.
take care of the tiny human this weekend and let's figure out grandmas and babysitters and all those things. And so that really did help a ton. Um, but since then, I mean, it really took me quite a while to come off that high of school and work because, I was working really early in the morning. I'd get everybody out the door. I'd work during the day, pick up, do all that. And then after bedtime, I would go back and work and do school work and things until usually midnight or one.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sleeping. You're stressed. You're trying to figure all the
Yeah.
things out. And it really took me a while to come off that high of those big long days and feel like it's okay to go to bed at 10 o'clock. It's okay to climb into bed and read a book and get some sleep. It's a weird concept. But I would say that I'm actually a better performer now because I'm giving myself those little breaks,
Yeah.
because I'm having a chance to refresh. And that might be, you know what, it takes, I want to go take a 10-minute shower where no one talks to me. Just everyone leave me alone. And that's hard to do sometimes. But whatever that is, to just take that few minute break and kind of honor that stress point and the parts of those parts of the day that maybe were not the best. I know 3 o'clock is just not my ideal brain time. And so I figure out, okay, that's the time where maybe I just go for a walk around the block really quickly, or I take a break and answer emails that don't require a lot of thought. And so I've tried to figure out those ways to make myself successful. But I would say my biggest one, and my biggest point of advice that I say to people is, especially new parents, is put your oxygen mask on first. They tell you that when you get on a plane, because if you don't put yours on first, something happens to you, nobody else gets their oxygen mask.
Yeah.
So for me, it's put my oxygen mask on first. And whatever that might be that day, some days it's, I try to squeeze in a quick 30-minute workout and break a sweat somehow. And some days that might just be, you know what, I just did a 10-minute Peloton meditation and that's all I have time for. But it's taking that little break that makes me a better human, which makes me a better worker. It makes me a better spouse. It makes me a better parent, makes me a better friend. And so I think what I really strive to do, and I'm not perfect at it by any stretch of the imagination, but I strive to give myself just a little bit of reprieve, whatever that might be, to honor what I need that day and support myself, because I'm always supporting others. And I mean, that's how we are as women, as parents, um, as founders. We're always trying to support and do whatever our followers need, our kiddos need. And so just do that to give yourself that same support that you would give others, just for, even if it's a few minutes a day.
I love what you're saying right now because, experience is always the best advice. That's really what you want to know. What are 3 mistakes you made in the beginning that you would tell somebody, "Don't do this. Don't do these 3 things. I did this, and I realized that now it's better if you blah, blah, blah." Maybe 3 things that you would have done differently that you would wanna share with a ambitious and high achieving woman.
Well, just three. I mean, geez. Um, I would, I would say, number one, especially if you're looking at being a business founder or something that you are looking to make a jump, and it's just do it. And I mean, Nike has that slogan that for a reason, because I think we can sometimes sit back and look at something and really get into our head, whether that's launching a business, whether that's taking a new job, whether it's going back to school, is just do it. And that would be one thing that I think I've kind of held back, younger and earlier in my career. And even when starting a business and starting our podcast, I think it took me 8 months to start our podcast, because I was like, I don't know how this works. I mean, we'll just kick this can down the road. No one's going to know. No one will know anything different. I would say that. I would say surround yourself with a great team and make sure that team is different than you. And I say that because, you know, if I surround myself with all like people like me, then who's going to help me do the finance, or
Yeah.
who's going to have that different perspective of whatever that is? And that's a challenge that we have with last night's game, that my brother and I are the same background. Granted, we're two different genders. We now live in different states. We have a whole different background, but really we were raised the same way. So we have a lot of the same values. And so it's nice to have sort of a board of advisors where we can say, what do you think about this? Because
Yeah.
this is what we think, but we're also the same brain in so many ways. So surround yourself with people who you enjoy, who will support you and will support your success. I think that's one huge piece of what I've started to do as I've become older, is realize that, especially as women, we don't really like to celebrate our successes. We sort of just say,
Mm.
okay, here we go. I did this and moved on. Where you need to say, you know what? I was on the coffee break show with Vickie Helm today. That was really awesome. And I'm really proud of myself. I'm really proud of what Vickie's doing. Let's celebrate our success and celebrate those other people, and shout, give yourself a little shout out every once in a while, whatever that might be. Have that group of people where you can say, I had a really awesome day today. I just want to tell somebody about it. So surround yourself with great people. And then I would say, gosh, I would say don't be afraid, but that kind of goes back with just do it. I mean, I truly think trust your gut. I mean, I would say that is
Yeah.
huge thing, that sometimes you just have this instinct that says, take this job, don't take this job, go on that date, don't go on that date, whatever that might be. I mean, that's how I met my husband. My best friend introduced us and said, I would like to set you guys up, and it's either going to go really well or it's going to be awful. And I thought, all right, why not? Let's just do it. I mean, why not? Let's just go. My gut says, why not? If you're saying something, let's go for it. And so I would say trust your gut, because truly your gut is your best instinct in business. And if something doesn't feel right, don't pursue it. And if it, I mean, working in the sports world, there were a lot of things that didn't feel right. There were gut instincts. You said, don't do that. And so I would definitely say that that is something to really truly keep in mind, is trust your gut.
God, I really love what you just said. I love it so much. One of the key things about women too is you just made a point of saying, it took me 8 months to get that podcast up because I didn't know what I was doing, etc. So if you get that gut feeling, just do it. Just do it. And I know that there's that fear piece of it as well. And I want to talk about that because some of the things that happened to me when I first started, like, I started off speaking on stages and I've spoken all over the world, et cetera, et cetera. And I remember the first time I had to go live, I wasn't looking at the camera and saying, I made all kinds of mistakes because I was used to talking to an audience that was out there
Mm-hmm.
in front of me. And you have to relearn or do something. And you have to be great at being just not perfect at it. Just
Right.
being able to go for it and let yourself suck in front of everyone. It doesn't,
Yes, and it's gonna
it's
happen.
like, let's just
Yeah.
have that moment. You're going to get better and better and better. And it's not about, to me, perfection. So I remember getting up on stage, suits, makeup, hair, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wearing a polo and I have no makeup on. And I'm just
I
like,
have a car seated back here. I
I
mean,
know. I mean, like it's okay to be imperfect. And I think what's endearing about that is that it sends some authenticity. It
mm-hmm.
sends some genuineness between you and the person that you're trying to communicate or meet. And I
Absolutely.
loved the reason that you said that. It's just like you want to trust your instincts. Now, what she said is so important because when we trust our instincts, our mind can come on and go,
Mm-hmm.
but, what about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? Don't let you talk you out of your gut instinct.
Right.
That's like the most important thing because changing and getting that gut instinct, getting that wave, there is divine timing and your timing. And usually the
Mm-hmm.
two are different. And
Mm-hmm.
so when you're managing all that and trusting your gut, what happens is quietly, because you trusted your gut, you build confidence. You build confidence over a period of time. It takes some faith and you take that next step.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to go back to something you talked about that I think is really important right now. And that is in a marriage, when a woman steps into being a high achiever and the husband starts taking over some of the housely duties and being some of the secondary caregiver or whatever that stepping that role in. I want to talk to the men about that. I know that there are a lot of men who feel like, I'm the breadwinner, I should stay home, and I don't stay home. How do I support my wife? How do you work your relationship amongst this whole thing? Do you have a date night? How do you take care of the marriage, the roles that you have? How do you become flexible and not it's, hi, a man does this and a woman does this? How do
Mm-hmm.
you become a partnership instead of a set of roles?
It's a really great question, and I can't say that it's perfect. And I would say it's really. I had a friend back when I was in college. Her aunt and uncle have this phenomenal marriage,
Mm-hmm.
at least from the outside. I mean, I'm sure they probably have their quarrels on the inside. But she said
Mm-hmm.
to me, "One thing, girls, I want you to understand is that a marriage is never 50-50. Sometimes it's 90-10, sometimes it's 10-90. You're going to need to take sometimes, and you're going to need to give more sometime." And that is something I strive to remind myself of, because as I mentioned before, my husband does travel a lot for work. So now that we're back post COVID, I guess if we're post COVID,
Yeah.
um, he's gone a lot, and so our marriage looks different. The way we do childcare and family time all looks different now, and so we both have that. That thought process of sometimes we have to take and sometimes we have to give. And so I would say what we do is we try to have a regularly scheduled date night. We have a sitter always scheduled on one night a week that we try to keep, and that happens about twice a month,
Mm-hmm.
and versus 4 weeks every week. But we try to do that, and we try to just have a chance to connect on things. And it does get really hard, especially in school, where my brain was so streamlined in these
Yeah.
categories, where I didn't have the bandwidth to have small talk, or even understand to really think about more than how was your day? You had a meeting about
Yeah.
what? I forgot about that. What was that meeting about again? Who is that? And bless him for being patient with all of those things, because I mean, we all do it. We all have our times where we need to give and we need to receive. And I think that was a huge piece, but I can't say that it was easy. And but we've both seen the silver lining of that. And last night, in fact, we were talking about doing something that would probably cause me to be gone a couple days a month. And he was like, that's okay with me if we can figure that out, because I really liked having time with our son by myself. We had our man
Mm,
time. And so it's finding that silver lining, and trying not to take it personally. I think that is a huge piece of
yeah.
it. Is when you're doing the fifth load of laundry in
Yes.
one day, and you're angry about it, and you're folding, and you're like, why is no one helping me with this? To not try not to take it personally, because everyone's contributing how they can in the best way they can. And it's hard not to take some things personally, but truly trying to step out and say, okay, this is how I'm giving my 50%, or this is how I'm giving my contributions at this point. And some days it looks different. Some days
Yes.
people are earning more money, but you're maybe giving more time, more
Mhm.
treasure, more talent. It's all those things that we, just as we would be on a maybe a nonprofit board or something, and everyone gives their time, talent, and treasure. Remember that everyone contributes how the best way they can. And if you're not being fed, or being, fed in the marriage the way you're supposed to be, bring it up, talk about it. I think that is
Yeah.
a huge piece, because I'm guilty for this.
Huge.
And
I think
I
a
know I'm
lot
in
of
trouble,
women
but
are.
what am I in trouble for?
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
say why you're mad. If that's you're mad about something, talk about it, because that's an opportunity for everyone to learn, and for you to also say, all right, you weren't trying to be rude. It was just something that you thought was funny, or whatever that might be. And so the communication is a huge piece of that for us, but it's trying to find those times to reconnect the best way we can too. And sometimes, like I said, that during COVID, it was, hey, baby's asleep. Let's go sit outside and have a glass of wine on the patio. That was the best. We had 2 hours to do that. Okay, great. We'll take what we can get. So,
Mhm. I love that you just said that. I love the interaction because a lot of people tell me that I work too much, that I
mhm,
have that, but I love what I do. I love it, love
mhm,
it, love it. And I I talk with my spouse and I think to myself, we don't actually take days off. We take moments off.
mhm.
So maybe between the workday, we take 2 hours off and we go mountain biking because that's what I like to do. Or
That's
we
awesome.
go out to dinner or we do something. But in
Mhm,
that time off, I don't feel like there is that I need time off from anything. I
mhm,
don't feel like I need time off from absolutely anything in my marriage, my relationships, or my work. What I do is manage my self care in there. So, like, I've scheduled my walk today, I've scheduled my, meetings and everything else. But I think what you mentioned about working together and just saying, we had a couple of hours, we're going to go out and have a glass of wine and sit down and talk and reconnect, and that is fulfilling. That's very
mhm.
fulfilling inside a relationship. Now, I want to talk about this because you said something earlier that caught my eye, and I love the juggling, the family, the work, the success, everything else. And let's talk about redefining. And I don't want to say redefining your marriage, but I believe after being married for a while that your marriage gets redefined. The roles
Mhm.
can be redefined based on the opportunities or things that you've outgrown together. Like sometimes people can outgrow where you're living right now, and maybe in their career, they need a fresh, new something or other. How is it that you can talk about that? Because it's not really talk about it. How do you help people or help yourself redefine who you are, redefine your life or your marriage or what you want? Because somewhere along the way, one of you is going to want more, whether
Mhm.
it's more personal growth, more adventures, more, just more of something, more, a deeper connection or more evolved relationship. How do you redefine or what's the strategies you use to redefine something when it's there? Like you said, you went from Singapore to here. That's redefining a whole lot.
It
Where do
sure
we live?
is.
Where do we work? How do you do it? Blah,
Mhm.
blah, blah. That's redefining. How do you get it to work together to redefine something instead of, making it some arduous fight? Do you understand my question?
Sure. No, I think that I do get it. And I will say we haven't had maybe as many redefines as people who were married young. We didn't meet
Hmm.
each other till we were 30 and didn't get married till we were 34, 35. And so, but it's true. It's really what I find fascinating when I step back and I was thinking about this as you asked this question is when we moved to Singapore, we weren't engaged. It was sort of a leap of faith, if you will. We had been together for maybe a year and a half. And it was one of those things where I said, I'm 31, 32 at this point. I know what I want out of a spouse and I want what I want what you're providing. I want you, but I'm not doing this in the US to Singapore. Like that's just not a thing that I'm willing to do at this moment. So we either go together or we're done. And that's fine if that's the call that you make. Life will go on. And so it took that leap of faith. And he joked that because I didn't say, well, I need a ring to move, that was actually scarier to him than saying I needed a ring to move. Because I said, this is my commitment to you. I'm moving because we moved for his job. And but it's that blind faith, and I think is part of it. But also we were sort of forced to we were it. I mean, when we moved to Singapore, we had no one. In fact,
Yeah, that's
we
so
were
true. When you're in a
we had
foreign
no
country,
one.
no one. Yeah.
No one, and so we were probably
Beautiful.
there for about a month, and, we were looking around at the pool at the kind of the short stay apartment we were living in, and we went, "Those people are having a barbecue. Those people are having, cocktails. We don't have any friends." You know?
It's
Okay.
just us.
And so, you kind of knew that moving to somewhere where you had no support system, it was gonna make or break you. You had to be reliant on each other. And I do think that shaped us in a way that we learned to support each other because we had to. We had no one else. But also the
Interesting.
beautiful part was we also had none of the noise. So we
Mhm.
got to be sort of our authentic selves. We weren't I mean obviously we made friends as we were there for longer and all those things, and but we had each other, so we were our authentic selves. When we were sad in front of each other. When we were happy, we shared it with each other because chances are our families were 16 hours difference in time zones, so they were probably sleeping. Um, so it was those things where we learned to really truly support each other in the best way we can and do the best we can to listen. And whatever that challenge might be, instead of getting upset about it, you had to step back and go, okay, you're not feeling supported here. Okay, let me step back and figure out how we can do that. What does that look like to you? Because
Mhm.
I think if I've learned anything from our marriage, but also from being a parent, sometimes your children ask questions and you're like, "Oh gosh, I have to answer that question. You're 3, I have to tell you about the birds and the bees now?" And you're like, "Oh, no, no. What do you wanna know about where babies come from?" And it's like, "Oh, no, they don't come down the chimney like Santa Claus." "Okay, nope, nope, that's not how that works." "Okay." It's like sometimes you dive down this rabbit hole of, "I need you to support me when I go through XYZ on this project. It's gonna be a lot." Well, what does that look like? Because what they need from you might not be what you think you need to give. And so I do think that listening perspective and really truly being supportive of how they need to be supported versus how you think they need to be supported is a huge piece of that. And kind of like you said, you figured out that maybe that 2 hour lunch break together is just as satisfying as a weekend away or whatever that might be, where you reconnect on a different level and you learn how to reconnect together on that as well.
Yeah, it's so I love what you're saying here. I think these are some fundamentals because I want to talk to the women and the men out there who are listening. And maybe you're moving from your job career to a business, and there's a completely different
Mhm.
lifestyle that's built. And sometimes in our mind, we like to hang on to the structures that we've learned that don't fit a business or a business lifestyle. The point of moving from this structure into this structure is that you get to have a whole new freedom. You
Mhm.
actually can build a life you love. But here's the deal: The life that you love doesn't fit into the boxes that are there for the masses and the average. And one of the things that you have to do is let go of the roles that you have in your marriage that you think, well, I'm the woman and I do this, and I'm the man and I do this. How is it that you see each other as two balls of strength, two balls of skill sets that you can come together and build this life you love? And I think you made some very important key points, Amy. And I just got to say, the point where you get to be authentic in front of your partner, where it's you two, I think it's very interesting that you were put in that position over there. Making new friends in foreign countries, this is also where sports comes in really well. And you have to know
Right.
the difference
Yes.
between football and football. And you know what I mean? But they're icebreakers in that way. And I love
Mhm.
that you round that up. I love that the what is it, the traditional marriage or the traditional relationship is outside, it's outside of success. Success means reinventing your whole relationship, not just with your spouse, but how you are with yourself. Your self-care comes immediately in the day. Maybe you have a scheduled time to go to the gym, but you when you work a job, you don't have a scheduled time to go to the gym. You're like,
Mhm.
well, I can make it here or here at the end of the day. When you have your own day, you get to be in the moment. You have your day done, and your relationship becomes a creation between you two, not the outside world, but
Mhm.
you two and what you two want to experience and accomplish together. Whether you're a traveling adventurous couple, whether you're a career couple, whether you're, whatever kind of couple you are. Amy, I think this is such an important topic because when we decide, part of the overwhelm I think people, especially women, feel is that instead of designing the life that they want, they try to shove everything into the role of, I'm a woman, so I do this and this and this and this and this. And above, you mentioned earlier, there are some things that you have to let go of as a woman. There's something you have to let go of. Like, I have a friend of mine, she CEOs 3 companies, and she had to let go of all the house cleaning. And that's pretty easy. You can hire a company to come in and clean your house and et
Mhm.
cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
But I loved what you did. And you said, it's so basic and so easy. Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. There is nothing wrong with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich dinner.
No.
Get over yourselves. These women that overwork, these women that are literally trying to fit into the role in the boxes, how do they decide, or how did you decide what gets dropped? Was there some way that you evaluated and said, can't be all things to all people? And I want to talk to you overachieving women who are just do it all. You can't be everything. You're just going to run yourself ragged. How
Mhm.
is it? Do you have like a system or a thing? How did you choose what got not done? Like, we're outsourcing the cleaning of the house. We're outsourcing grocery shopping. And I want to let you know, I think this is important. I think in the last 15 years, I've done one load of laundry. I've been to the grocery store twice because I know I have to outsource stuff in order
Yeah.
to do what I do. What are you doing? How do you have a system for that? What did you do?
Well, I think it kind of it started with what do I feel like I need to do and that I can do that fuels my family, that contributes to my household how I can. And it came down to things like, why am I doing laundry all week long? Because then I'm distracted. When I'm in the office at home now, I'm not doing dishes. I'm not doing laundry. I'm not throwing in a load of laundry because I'm working. And that, just taking those little pieces of, you don't think about how much, oh, I've got to go change the wash over, how
Yeah.
much that really does impact just you're out of your zone. And so that was one thing where laundry gets done on Saturdays. And if you
Yeah.
need something between, then
Do it
do it
yourself.
yourself. And that was one thing that was for me went, oh, this is, I can spend all this time in one day. And we travel quite a bit. And so it's like, okay, well, if it doesn't get on a Saturday, we're all going to have enough clothing. No one's going to have to go to work or school naked. We're all going to be fine. We'll make it work. And so I would truly try. That is one thing where I've
Mhm.
directed laundry to one day a week. Um, and I just had to become, I have a toddler, or I guess he's 3, so I don't know if that's a toddler anymore, but he
No,
would eat
that's
peanut butter.
toddler.
He would eat peanut butter and jelly for every meal if he was
Yeah,
allowed to.
that's
So
right.
it was like, "You want a pancake tonight, buddy? Let's do this." And
Mhm.
I was that sort of, you know what? I didn't eat a blueberry that wasn't in a muffin until I went to college. And so I turned out okay. I eat blueberries now and I'm fine.
Yeah.
But it's one of those where I just had to think sometimes we get so overstroked about what we see on Instagram and these beautiful meals and perfectly dressed children
Mhm.
and romantic date nights and all these things. And it's like, your romantic date night is what you make it. And your great, perfectly dressed child, people love a kid who has 2 different shoes on. They think it's the best thing ever.
Yeah,
Mine frequently goes out in a rain boot and a flip flop, and it's like, it is what
that's fine.
I get. It's. I think so much of that is letting go of kind of like you said, what you feel like you need to be, and being who you are.
That's
And
so
if you
key.
are obsessed with, you want to clean your own house, and that's what makes you happy, do it. And for me, that allows me a couple hours left in my week where I can play with my child
Yeah,
versus have to worry about cleaning the floors. I mean, I still run the vacuum and all those things, but I would rather take the time to be with my child than I would, and my husband, than I would being worried about have the sheets been ironed or whatever. I don't, I'm sure someone irons their sheets. That is definitely not something I do, but you just have to, I think it's that perspective, and the times that I get most frustrated in whether it's my marriage or really, to be honest, work is a great one. When you're an entrepreneur, you see all these other companies that are soaring and they have enough money and enough clients and they're just, everything is perfect. And that's BS because everyone is
that's true.
striving for more. Mark
Yep,
Zuckerberg has kind of made it, but he's still striving for more.
that's
And
correct.
so we need to remind ourselves that the times I think that I get most upset and most frustrated is when I'm supposed to be doing things and it's supposed to look like this. It's supposed to be this.
Yes,
And and I think that's something COVID has taught all of us is that your trips get canceled. Someone gets sick and someone
that's
tests
right.
positive at your house and you now can no longer
Yep,
go to Christmas or whatever that might be. And
yep.
we've changed the way what the should be looks like, but the times that I get most frustrated with myself and really give myself a hard time for what I'm not doing is truly
Mhm.
when I'm looking at somebody else's expectations of me. And end of the day, my child feels safe and is loved and has food on the table.
You go, girl.
We have all the things that we truly need. And that other stuff of matching outfits for, laughing family photos on a Saturday, that doesn't happen. And that's okay. That's totally fine.
I
We're gonna go to
love this. I love this. I love this because we are tearing
yeah,
down we're tearing down the illusions that people have when they look at Pinterest or they look at Instagram and
right.
here we are doing this and here we are doing that and here we are doing this. Like I know my promos go out for my show and I think this is my 5th season, I don't know, whatever it is. But during the pandemic, my show is booked out way in advance. I'm a popular show and I'm proud of that. I've
Hmm.
earned it. And during the pandemic, I'm like, so many people called, I have COVID, I can't be on. You have to reschedule, you have to do what you have
Yep.
to do. Some people are just so sick. And you have to have some flexibility and authenticity and reality in your life.
Hmm.
And sometimes that means that it doesn't look perfect. It isn't perfect. And I go, this is why I do live shows. I finally have decided I'm going to do a YouTube channel, but YouTube you can syndicate, you can make yourself look perfect and everything's
Right.
perfect and then you can edit out whatever you don't want. But the reason I like live shows is because this is an authentic conversation. This is some place where you and I have sat down and said, let's have a talk, even if we screw up a word or
Right.
we say a cuss word and we're like, oops, I didn't mean to say that, or whatever it is. It's like there's a level of authenticity and
Hmm.
you hear it from the horse's mouth. You're not actually trying to get to the point where you are faking it somehow. And I
Right.
love what you're saying about I want to tell women this because women, so many of us become perfectionists. Then we feel imposter syndrome. Then we
Mhm.
feel overwhelmed. Then we feel not good enoughness.
Yeah.
Then we feel, and we try to become Gal Friday, which is, I'm a back up my husband, back up my friends, back up this, back up that. And they don't say no. They don't
Right.
say no.
At
I
their
need
own
to
expense,
remove.
exactly.
Yes. And their own self care. And then suddenly they're laying sideways on the couch and they have cookie dough and they're in their sweats and they're depressed and crying and,
Yeah.
wondering what happened. I'm like, girlfriend, you need to say no. And Amy, what Amy is saying today is one of the most important things about success. Success isn't a series of perfections. Success is moving forward with imperfection, with
Mhm.
consistent action, with absolute genuineness forward. These are really strong keys to success. And everybody sees the perfect hair, the perfect suit, the perfect face. But you don't know how many days I have rolled out on a Saturday. I have a thing, Amy. I call it Pajama Saturday, where
Love
will
it.
work in my pajamas all Saturday because I'm not seeing anybody. I'm just catching up
Mhm.
on work and everything else. And I love my pajamas, actually. I have some very
Same.
nice pajamas. And I'm like, you know what? Here it is. And my hair is not, it's all up Saturday hair, etc. And I'm just working and doing my thing. And that's the thing, this perfection BS conversation that most people have, where you have to be coiffed and perfect in order to have success. I can tell you after, 13 businesses, 41 books, and everything else I'm doing, there is no perfection. There's only authenticity, and there is authenticity and self care in the moment. There is no work life balance.
No.
There is the balance that you create in the moments. And I'm enjoying this truth telling that we're having because
Me too.
so many successful women they're so, you know, look at me, Wendy, I'm going to use the word red bottom shoes. And they're so, look at me, I'm so power. Everything is, I work out every day and I'm this and that and the other.
Mhm.
It's okay to have a sucky day and to feel
Yeah.
like, have you ever had one of those days, Amy, where you're getting up in the morning and you're procrastinating because you don't feel like working?
Mhm. All the
Or
time.
you're like, if the toddler could just sleep a couple more hours so mommy could sleep a couple more hours.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I love the thought that Amy is telling us is, what if you're doing just fine? What if things are working out, but you are your inner critic? And I want you to speak about the inner critic. The inner critic is just talking you out and you are beating yourself up verbally. What kind of mom are you? And see the other girls and look at this and that. Let's talk about that, Amy. How do you, because I do it too. I'm like, look at all these other producers. They're producing twice as many shows as you are, and they're doing that. Da, da, da,
Yep.
da. What do you do with your inner critic when it comes up and starts telling you you're a bad mom, you're just not good at anything because you're trying to do
Mhm.
it all? What
Mhm.
happens? What do you do? Especially because you got your MBA. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. To be honest, it's paralyzing. I think
Hmm.
when I start to get in that headspace of this isn't good enough, you're not doing a good enough job at this, you're not doing this, I just almost stop. Like I just become not productive. I just freeze because it's like you're so paralyzed. Are you supposed to take two steps forward, one step back? What are you supposed to do? And how do you get to that point? And I've really tried. I had a boss once, and this is kind of a random one. I don't do as much as I should, but he used to save positive emails from people in a email file called successes, and he would drag his emails into there, and that was always a great one. So I have those moments where I look through some of our testimonials sometimes, but my one little nugget that I do when I'm kind of going down this downward spiral of shame with myself, I love to send greeting cards to people. Usually the more inappropriate, the better. But sometimes when I'm having one of those moments where you're like, I'm not good enough at this, I'm a bad my bad friend, gosh, I haven't called this person back. And how am I trying to keep track of all my friends all over the country? And, whatever. We've had peanut butter and jelly for 6 days in a row, whatever that might be. My kid threw sand at someone at school. They were all the things. I'm had 5 people unsubscribe from the newsletter, and now I'm upset, and all the things. Um, you just step back, and I send. That's kind of my like reset. I send greeting cards so that I find funny because I know that brings joy to someone else when they open it.
Mhm.
So that's sort of my step back. Let me take 5-10 minutes, send some cards, write something funny in them, and send them off. And sometimes it's
Right.
I don't have the wit and I just sign it love Amy and that's all you get. But it's kind of that spreading it, paying it forward gives me that step back of, okay, well, you're not a terrible human. You're not a terrible, worker, whatever that might be. And so what? You bring joy your own special way. And I started to remind myself of this. And I think this comes as we continue to age, and you talk about experience being so valuable, which I think allows us to have that perspective to say, I can be my authentic self because I have the experience saying that I am really pretty good at this one thing that I'm really good at. Maybe I'm not good at that thing, but whatever that might be, that authenticity comes with that experience. And so for those who
Mm.
are younger listening to this, is that's why you trust your gut, because you have that experience to trust your gut. But I always say that, and I've really had to remind myself because I've stepped into things that are angel investing and kind of outside of my wheelhouse of
Yeah.
journalism. And that's one reason I went back to get my MBA, because I didn't quite know what was going on. And so I wanted to understand. But everyone has their own version of smart, and everyone has
Yes.
the one thing they're good at. And we all need that. So I remind people, especially when I talk to people who are starting their career, you have your own version of smart. You're really good at something that probably your boss isn't good at. That might be social media. You understand TikTok. I can guarantee you half of the people you work with have no idea what TikTok really, like what it really is. So whatever that might be, but remember that you need to work hard and continue to hustle so you can have that experience and you can learn all those different things and you can continue to become smart in different things. But hustle hard. But we're all smart in our own thing, and if we hustle, we're going to continue to be smart in our thing, but let's continue to learn enough about other things so that we can complement what other people are doing. So I just try to remind myself when I give myself a hard time about, you screwed up on this, whatever that might be. It's like, it's okay. It's okay to screw up. And you know what? Stop giving yourself a hard time about not being good at, I don't know,
Yeah.
financial modeling. And that's okay. You have your own version of smart. Someone else is really good at that, and they're not going to go out and do a podcast and write all about different things all the time. Like, you could write their school papers, they can do your math homework. And that's okay. We have our own version of smart, and that as we become adults, we're allowed to have that little niche of our own, and that's okay. So that's one thing to think about. And that truly is your personal brand. What are you really good at? And remember that you are really good at things and specific things, and probably you have experience that provides you, even if you're good at public relations, you might have experience that makes you good at that makes you different than everybody else. So just remember that you have your own version of smart when you get in those downward spirals of
Yeah.
the pity parties that we all
Mhm.
get into, and
Yeah.
that it's okay just to be your authentic self. And people who are going to love you for your authentic self will love you no matter what. And those people who judge you for being your authentic self, there are going to be a lot of those too. So
Yep.
screw them and move on. It's the best way I
Yep.
can say that. It's hard. It's not easy to do, but sometimes you just have to let those people go who are not part of your tribe and who are not really supporting you the way you need to be supported.
It's so interesting what you're saying because part of reimagining yourself and part of doing something, stepping up and having more and doing more and being more isn't always about choice. It's like sometimes you have the choice. Yes, I want to go back and get an MBA. Sometimes your choice is this failed or I can no longer have this anymore. And maybe that
Yeah.
is like I have a friend of mine who was a professional Olympic uh, professional horse jumper. The
Mhm.
horse, I forget what it's called, and she had an accident that took her out from her
Oh.
profession that she loved and has been in since she was, wee high to a grasshopper.
Mhm.
And she realized suddenly she had to make a new pivot. She had to reimagine herself. And so she's now CEOing and learning curve. She has a
It's
manufacturing
awesome.
company and she has everything. She had to reimagine based on a mishap that happened that took this thing away from her. And I know that your inner critic can sit there and beat you up forever. Why did you do this? If only this, blah, 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 blah. But that reimagining, that making a completely different life, made a completely different her. But at the
Hmm.
core of her, at the very inside core of her, was something that she could imagine differently for herself. She could imagine a different life, a different outcome. And sometimes you have to do that. I don't know where you are. Maybe you're watching this show and your marriage just tanked, and you now are a single mom and you have 2 kids, 3 kids, whatever you have. Maybe your business tanked over COVID and you had it for 30 years, 20 years, 15 years. And now you're like, what the am I going to do? Maybe wherever you are, there is a painful part of your transition, or you're reimagining yourself in this new life. And somewhere along the way, Amy told us earlier, and I really want to say this to you. I know it's painful to lose a business. I know. I have failed. I have 13 successful businesses, but I started with starting 18 and 6 of them tanked. So I want to get to the point where you are
Yeah.
looking right now at that and saying to yourself what she said, can you reimagine it? You don't have to stop feeling the pain, but your gut is going to come along and it
Mhm.
is going to say to you, let's start this. Can you just trust yourself even this much? Shut your inner critic down. Take that next step. Realize that whether it was a job or your business that failed, there's something better, grander, and excellent waiting for you to take the next step after you're done grieving. And you get to
Yes.
grieve as long as you want. But when you're done grieving, that next step, listen, because the next step is in there trying to tell you, listen, I know you're grieving, I know it hurts, but here's the next step.
Yeah.
Take that next step. And
Yeah. There's a great. Oh, go ahead.
go ahead. No, no.
I was going to say, someone who's been fired and laid off and all those things. Um, there was a book, and I don't remember how it had a couple of baseball coaches in it, and that's why I think it had landed on my desk at one point. And it was called "I Got Fired, and it was the best thing that ever happened to me."
Oh,
And
yeah.
so when I got fired, I remember thinking of that title, going, "And that's the best thing that ever happened to me." And it truly was devastating, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me. So those challenges that arise, they really suck and they're
They
awful.
do.
And you said, you need to
Yeah,
be able to grieve them. And but those challenges make us stronger. They make us better. They make us more aware. They heighten our awareness of maybe what we really want out of our lives and out of our careers. And you're right. It's grieve, but also onward and upward. Trust that gut and go get them. Think of it as a positive opportunity to open up another door.
so now anybody listening right now and you're thinking, oh my God, I need to talk to Amy. I want to work with Amy. I want to hang out and figure out my new thing with Amy here. How do they get a contact to you? What can we do? And Robin, would you do me a favor? Listen, if you're listening on iHeartRadio or Pandora, Spotify, or wherever you are, drive safely. It's going to be in the show notes. We'll put it in there. I'll have Robin put it down below. How can they get a hold of you and work with you?
So our website is lastnightsgame.com. But I run our Instagram account, and you'll see on our Instagram stories, I have a very unfiltered version of what it's like to be a mompreneur, as we call ourselves. So you are going to see my child with one flip flop and a rain boot on, and we're going to go at breakfast, and it is what it is. So, but Instagram account is Last Night's Game. We're also on Twitter at Last Night's underscore Game, Facebook and LinkedIn, all Last Night's Game. Please connect with me. I would love to chat with you. Email is amy@lastnightsgame.com. But Instagram is a great spot. I'm always on there. I'm always trying to figure out new ways to communicate and bring different products and bring different ideas to people. So please, I would love to hear what you have to say. And like I said, we try to highlight what it's like to be behind the scenes of this crazy brain of mine, and it's been a lot of fun. It's a great way to connect with those who are connected with us. And so it's a lot of fun there. And so Last Night's Game on Instagram is probably the best way to find me, or email.
Okay, at last
Thank you.
night's game. At last night's game. Thank for putting this up. Relax, people. It's in the show notes. You can go ahead. It's in the thread. It'll be there so that you can connect with her. I got to say, Amy, you're doing the real work. You're doing the
Oh,
real
thank
work.
you.
And what I mean by that isn't just that you have last night's game and that you have a family, it's your level of authenticity and genuineness bringing success to a more real look into how people achieve success. And that means that we aren't superheroes. We're not, there's not silver spoons. There's one probably imperfect step after another imperfect step,
Hmm.
and your attitude is so inspiring to me. I
Thank you.
really love the peanut butter and jelly story because I remember doing that. I was like, oh God, peanut butter and jelly. I think there was a time, not that I was, oh, I love peanut butter and jelly, or oh, I'm so broke, that's all we got to have. It's quick, it's easy, it's simple. Peanut butter,
Hmm.
jelly, go. You eat something and
Yep.
you keep going and you keep working. I love what we've talked about today. Here it is, you guys. There's Instagram.com/last night's game. Thank you for being with me today,
Oh my gosh,
in
thank
your
you.
busy day, parking in your car, sitting down and going, I got to go to my next thing, but I'm ready, and being with me on the coffee break show today. I've mega enjoyed you being here with us. It has
Thank
been
you.
just outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been an honor. So thank you for having me. I really, really appreciate it. I've enjoyed our conversation so much. Thank you.
All right, you guys, next week we have another really great guest. We will see you on the coffee break show, and nobody gets out of here without listening to the music. I'll see you guys later.